So about a year or so ago, I came across this term called heritage language learning, and I realized that I myself am on a heritage language learning journey. So what that means is that English was the dominant language that was spoken in the home, but there's also this minority or indigenous language that's being spoken by your family or your community that you're immersed in. It's just a natural thing that happens, but as a result, many kids don't end up knowing their heritage language fluently. So you might be able to comprehend some of what your parents are saying, or you might be close to fluent, or you might not even understand anything. I think a popular example of this that some of us might be familiar with is with Hispanic culture. You'll hear about the no sabo kid. No sabo means I don't know, and this means that, this kid didn't grow up learning Spanish, and English was probably the main language. And this is something that I'm all too familiar with, and I know a lot of other people within my culture feel the same way. But growing up, whether you're going to a family gathering or you just come across someone that speaks the language from your culture and they ask if you know the language, and the phrase is always, like, I don't know. So that's something that happens across all cultures. Assimilation is the main reason for this, and yeah, if you don't grow up around people speaking that language that much, then you're not gonna know it. I grew up in the US, and Tigrinya was spoken in the home, but I wasn't necessarily, taught that. The focus was education and just like studying for school, and we didn't really have a big community of us around. Naturally, English became the main language that I spoke. There's a lot of guilt and shame that you carry when you don't know your language, and that doesn't feel good, and sometimes it can deter you from learning more about your culture and your language and where you come from. And it's not that you don't want to know the language, you wish that you did, but it just so happened that you don't. And I don't believe in shaming people into doing something. You can't ever force someone to do something or to want to do something. I don't think anyone has ill intention in this scenario, but it does feel that there's a lot of shaming that goes on when someone doesn't know their language, and it's not their fault, and it's no one's fault.
I don't think we ever really got over that language barrier.
No, it's not your fault.
All the talks we could have had, all the wisdom you could have shared.
It's a very touchy subject for many people, and sometimes, some people might not care at all. When they're questioned about knowing their language, some might feel these feelings of guilt and shame, and then eventually maybe, for example, like me, I have let go of those feelings. I've reflected on it, and I feel that I'm in a space where I feel ready and I have a willingness to learn. And actually haven't heard too many negative comments about me not knowing Tigrinya recently, which is nice. It's a nice breather, but I got hit with one in January. Someone asked, do you know Tigrinya? The answer was no. And sometimes, even though you do know some, you don't want to explain that, and it's just easier to say no sometimes, honestly. And they said, you guys don't want to learn, and you just have to shrug off those comments, because first of all, that's not true. This person doesn't know me. I actually do want to learn. At that time, it wasn't the right timing for me, and that's what it was. But yeah, I think now, moving forward, even if someone does make those comments towards me, it's not gonna affect me as much as it did before. I think there needs to be a lot more understanding when it comes to learning your heritage language. People just need space and time to be able to do something. And this isn't just with language, it's with anything. And yeah, you can't force someone to do it, and someone needs to really be curious and just ready. And maybe they'll know it one day and want to learn, and maybe they won't. But I do think it is important to carry tradition and to pass on your culture to future generations. But yeah, that's not going to be the case for every single person. I personally decided to start learning my language in 2020 when I had some time, and I learned the whole alphabet, And after that, I started to feel really overwhelmed and just like pressure around it and just like annoyance at myself, and I just wanted to learn it as fast as I can, and that's just, it was not realistic. I strayed away from it for a few years, honestly, but that's something that I am getting back into now. I decided that I'm just gonna take it easy and take my time with it, and I want to have fun, and I want it to be an enjoyable process. So my plan is to just, now that I've reviewed the alphabet, just learn one word a day and keep it at that. And if I decide that I want to add more onto my plate, then I will. Because when you become an adult, there's a lot of things that you have to tend to, and you have other goals and things like that. Making these small steps is the way to go, at least for me. I think everyone's on their own journey with learning, if they choose to learn, and all we can do is encourage people and give them their time. And speaking of tigrinya, I recently saw the Bob Marley movie about a month ago, and it was honestly really good. I wasn't expecting it to be as entertaining as it was, and I didn't really know that much about Bob Marley, so it was cool to learn more about him. But there definitely was some misinformation in it regarding the Giz alphabet, which is where tigrinya comes from, and the Amharic language also comes from that alphabet as well. So the scene that had the piece of misinformation in it was when Bob Marley and his group were trying to come up with the cover art for his Exodus album, and they finally landed on a design. And they said that the design came from the Ethiopian Amharic alphabet, which there's no such thing as the Ethiopian Amharic alphabet. There is the Giz alphabet. Its origin is Tigray. And so from the Giz alphabet, the Tigrinya language comes from that, and then the Amharic language comes from that. Those languages are from two different ethnic groups in Ethiopia. It's really important in films and media in general to really do your due diligence and not spread misinformation, because that leads to cultural erasure, which is something that's happening in Tigray. It happens with other indigenous cultures, and that's just really dangerous, and it's a scary thing, and it's an intentional thing a lot of the times. A lot of African cultures and traditions are passed down orally, so you're not gonna find some things online or through books always. That can make it easy for some people to just go with what you find online, but I really do think it's important to talk directly to the people of the culture to make sure that you're getting things right. And sometimes you happen to come across someone that might be advising you wrong, and that's one of the ways that misinformation can be spread. So I'm excited to go on my own little heritage language journey with tigrinya, and let me know if you have had similar experiences growing up with your language and culture, and just your thoughts on the topic, because there's a lot to say. There's a lot of feelings around it. I will see you in the next video.